There we go. Well, I think we should get started. We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's kick it off. So, hi everyone, I'm Katie from the customer success team here at Cledara, and welcome everyone to this month's edition of Cledara Connects. We're going to be addressing, as I said, the topic of the moment, I think, which is all about AI, and I'm really excited to be hosting this one today because, let's be honest, it is kind of everywhere right now. New tools are coming out on the market. I think we're all watching very closely to see just how AI is going to make us more efficient and just how far it can go. And I think we're all curious and all here today to hear about what everyone else is doing. So we want to have a real practical conversation today about what AI really means for finance teams, what perhaps the risks are, maybe how the role and team structure might evolve as this technology gets more and more embedded in the way we work. So I've got two fantastic guests with me here today to talk about this topic. So first of all, I'd really like to introduce Laura Beales. Laura is the co-founder of Tally Workspace. Tally Workspace is a platform that helps companies find offices. She has a background in audit and accounting. So she then transitioned into tech entrepreneurship by co-founding Tally in 2020. And under her leadership, she's secured funding and recognition as the Startups 100 list and is a self-confessed AI enthusiast. So I'm very excited to have her today and hear a perspective both from finance and as a tech founder. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
And we also have Bilal Khurram here today. So Bilal is a fractional CFO, also with a background in audit and now specializing in helping startups build very efficient and very software-driven finance functions. So again, it's going to bring a wealth of experience in startup finance and operations. As I mentioned, he also has a background in audit, and just before the call today told us quite a funny anecdote about being at the audit firm about 10 years ago at a panel discussion about AI, and I think the speakers were convinced it wasn't really going to be a thing anytime soon. I think he was one of the only ones who raised a hand and disagreed, so I guess is kind of the last one laughing now. So welcome, Bilal. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Okay. And everyone here on the call today, we've got loads of people here today, and we'd really love to hear from you. So a couple of ways you can join in the conversation. We have the Q&A section, so feel free to drop any of your questions in there, and we can address them as we go through or save some to the end. And you also have the chat functionality as well, so feel free to type to us there. So I reckon let's dive into it. I actually wanted to ask everyone on the call today. I'm going to just launch a quick poll because I'm interested to know if anyone here is already kind of using AI in their day-to-day. So let us know if you've already incorporated it. Maybe you haven't started just yet. So we're getting those poll results in. And yeah, it looks like the majority have already. It's about, 80% have, 20% still to implement it. So maybe let's start there then. I'll start with you, Laura, as a founder, and I'm sure you have to wear many hats. I'm kind of curious, like, what tools are you using today, and how are they helping you? Are they helping you be more efficient? Are they helping you get more things done?
I think both. So I use kind of like all of the standard ChatGPT, Claude, I use Manus. I use them all for slightly different purposes. And I do often find it really interesting. You put in a question into one, you put it into another, and you get a completely different response. So sometimes I kind of know which ones I like to use for different things. I find Claude is much better for kind of longer documents or more Excel-based queries or coding. I find ChatGPT much good for kind of chatty things. And then there are kind of, I guess, ones that I find quite useful on like a day-to-day efficiency level. So I use Fixer on all of my emails, and that drafts things up. And actually, sometimes it's terrifying. I sent out an investor update the other day. Claude drafts my email responses, and I cannot tell you how good some of the responses to the investor questions were. It was kind of like mind-blowing. So I use kind of a lot of efficiency stuff like that just to kind of make things quite quick as a founder. Like, I often have to do presentations, so being able to spin up a slide deck in 10 seconds, like, maybe it's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but it's for an internal team meeting, so it doesn't need to be. So it's that type of thing where, yeah, I use it a lot for efficiency, but I also use it, I guess, to come to better answers, I think, as well.
Yeah, and we were talking before about how it can help you kind of get a little bit further down the line, right? If you've got an idea or something you vaguely remember and you just want to hash kind of flesh out the idea, it's kind of great for that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, there was a really good study that I can't remember where I read about it, but it basically, they put workers with an AI agent, like a ChatGPT thing, and they weren't just measuring them on efficiency, they were measuring them on like the end output, and it was always better if they were working with an AI agent. So yeah, I think it's pretty amazing how much it can help your thinking.
Definitely. And I guess, Bilal, same question to you, especially as you're kind of big on process improvement and automation. What tools, I guess there's two things for you here. What are you using? And then what are you seeing the companies you work with, or what are you encouraging them to do in terms of adopting AI?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I just want to come back to something that Laura said about how you end up getting a preference for different tools based on the different things. I think mine might be the other way around.
Oh, really?
I quite like using ChatGPT just to double check things like Excel-based stuff or Google Sheets-based stuff. It may be because that was the first one I started using, so that's maybe the preference goes. But I know that things like, let's say Google Sheets, which I end up using more than Excel, they have their own built-in. I think Gemini is the one built into Google Sheets, and then Excel, you can get Copilot as well. But I always want to come back to ChatGPT and just double check things, or that's where I go when things aren't working out. So that's quite interesting. You've also got things like just making things slightly more efficient than they were, right? So, for example, the companies don't pay for it, but I'll pay for things like Grammarly, for example, just to double check the wording or make things more concise. In emails, for example, super, super useful. Um, there's also things like I think Gemini has the deep research. So, for example, it can produce really, really big reports. I don't know if anyone's used it. But I think the insights from that are really useful in terms of how it puts things out in an academic way. So it might be something non-academic. You can ask it, but it'll bring out all the research. Things like say, where should I invest my money, right? So it'll do the whole research for you and give you where you should put it, but also maybe why and here are the insights. But in terms of automation, some of it, the way I try and think about it is how we can, I guess, almost autopilot some of the things that can be a little bit repetitive. So let's building the process initially, but then let's try and make it autopilot. And obviously Cloudera comes in usually as one of the answers of trying to speed things up, make things more efficient. But there's definitely at each part of any process, how can we try and add a tool in or add multiple tools to try and connect pieces together. But that's definitely one of the things that comes up. And you're starting to find that a lot of these tools have a lot of the built-in AI tools now in there to help you connect different pieces together. And again, like I was saying, like Google Sheets has its own Copilot, but also you're starting to see more and more how the different accounting platforms, I believe, are starting to get it. I know that Xero has the beta version, I think, of their AI coming. Sorry, it's already out, I think, in beta. I know Sage has Copilot because that's part of that group as well. So you're starting to see a lot more become already part of the tools that are already out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess then that kind of thinks about the finance function and the makeup of the team and the skill set of the people in that function, right? And I guess as AI maybe takes on more of the workload, maybe there's more repetitive tasks. Any
Mhm.
thoughts on that or concerns? Do you see that kind of delaying maybe hiring? Would you rely on that versus perhaps growing the team? Is that kind of where it's going? Laura, any thoughts around that specifically?
Yeah, when I used to work in management consultancies, we used to go into finance teams and we would say
Mm.
there were kind of like three levels to a finance team. So there's operational, where you're just kind of, you're doing your month end, you're doing your reporting. There's managerial, where you're actually like looking at the budgets and doing all of that type of thing. And then the top level is like strategic, where you're really setting the financial direction of the company. And I kind of feel like the operational, it's so obvious that AI is going to be able to do 95% of that, if not pretty much all of it. And I think especially when we're talking about agent AI, like where you can actually have an agent that can probably literally go and do your month-end close for you and prepare a draft of your investor report, like that really changes that whole operational level completely. And they're saying that that will be in a year's time, that will be the case. So I think that's going to completely change the structure of finance departments and what they do. But I think it's exciting because it means that you have time for the strategic and the managerial and like really making a difference in the business and doing that all so much faster. So I definitely think for us, it has meant that we have needed to not hire finance people because it's already becoming increasingly automated. And you feel safer doing that for longer because you can obviously see that the advances that are being made like month on month are crazy. So yeah, I think it will completely change the structure of finance teams.
Yeah, we were kind of talking before about perhaps some of the tasks that maybe when you're junior or it's your first job, you come in and do, and that's like how you maybe learn the ropes or learn how certain things worked. Maybe AI will take over that. So what would the skill set of that person coming in look like then? Or how would they then gain those skills or that knowledge to then kind of grow? Bill, I'm not sure if you're like have any thoughts on that and how people can kind of prepare for that kind of change in perhaps entering the workspace.
Yeah, I hope it means that the issue will be other way around. I hope it means that people who have less experience are actually able to leverage a lot more knowledge at their fingertips so they can, for lack of a better word, compete with people who have a lot more experience. I hope that's what happens. And I hope that means that potentially with something that might happen is that rather than having, let's say as a business scales, you start to get some specialisms, which is probably the ideal right now. What it may mean is that you get a lot more generalists in the business who can jump in and let's say fill in gaps where they might be they might be needed in the short term, and so that the human teams become a lot more agile and be able to focus on things that come up. That could be what happened because it means that people need to have a lot less uh, inherent knowledge, and yet they know where to go to get that answer. Um, and I hope what also means it is that it allows people to be a little bit more creative. And obviously, creative and accounting don't go together, but maybe they should. Maybe they should in the sense that it allows people to think at a stage where they're early in their career to be like, hang on, if I were to do things differently, how could I do that? While still being able to know that actually a lot of the stuff that usually may have taken 90% of their time ends up taking a lot less. It allows humans to be more creative and have more confidence that they can take a few more risks. I hope that's what happens in the future.
So perhaps kind of having this more role of like checks and balances rather than, and as you were saying, Laura, kind of freeing up the time to perhaps be more creative, as you said, Bilal, or to focus on those pieces of work that are really more important for the business or allow you to move things forward a lot quicker.
One of the interesting things they've talked about is often, when you're doing financial analysis, you're going in with a theory and you're kind of asking the data like, oh, if we reduce churn, blah, blah, blah. Whereas now you can put all of your data into the AI model and it will come back with the hypothesis for you. So you can suddenly run all of these ideas at the same time, and actually like the growth levers that a finance team might be telling people to invest more money in could be completely different. And so that whole role completely changes the financial analysis and everything as well. So I think it's a really interesting time, but it's scary as well.
Yeah, I guess kind of pick up on the scary kind of element in some senses. Is there anything that would be off limits, would you say? Any kind of specific data types you mentioned there, kind of making, coming up with investment decisions, payroll, customer billing. Is there anything that feels off limits that you would not allow AI to do, or not be interested in it taking over those kind of tasks?
Right now, I wouldn't let it take over those tasks. I don't know if you disagree with that.
Yeah, definitely not right now. I think one thing we were saying earlier about, like, I don't think we should take anything for granted. It was what we were speaking about just before the call started about how if we were to Google sort of AI tools, some of the things that come up are now written by either the accounting firms, or they're written by the big players in the industry. And say there's an article from the ACCA, for example, they were saying, look, here's a whole bunch of tools that are great for AI. They can do a whole bunch of things for you, but there are some things that an AI won't be able to replace. And one of the things was around the human relationship, right? That accountants might have with clients, for example. And I think even now, we can probably think that I don't think we should take that for granted either. There are
Yeah,
things
I'm
like,
pretty sure when I was in audit, nobody wanted me there anyway. So.
right? So it's that side of like, I can see the ethical side of it, but at the same time, when you can answer a lot of questions via an AI chatbot, or even you get a lot of chatbots now that have a voice, right? You can talk through things, and it's already giving you answers. I know that Gemini, they have their AI that has the voice behind it as well, when it's able to answer things. How far are we from actually going through hiring platforms, or being able to call up and your, maybe not HMRC, but your accountant's tax hotline might be an AI voice that's able to answer everything you need. I don't think we're that far away from it. When it comes to things like investment decisions and stuff, I think, yeah, even that, I'm like, where would you stop? Would you let an AI create it register its own business? Do you let it then do the transactions? We need to have maybe some human agency at some stage. So I think the bit that might stop us, or maybe put some blockers, it's probably when it comes to the ethical perspective, right? Of like, is it right for it to do that? But yeah, maybe that's it.
I also think, as finance people, we are not developers, and we do not, I certainly don't, like, completely understand the AI and like how it's working and everything. So I wouldn't probably design a tool myself. There are probably ways that I could quickly like code something to make payments for me, but like I don't have enough skill to do that. But as these softwares and all the tools that we use, like Zero, Dex, Cloudara, they are using AI and they know how to put the appropriate guardrails in. And as that develops, I think the trust in what you would let it do will kind of evolve. But I think, you have to be protective of your data. You have to be protective of kind of like anything that would
Yeah.
put your business at risk. And that's why I think finance is being a bit of a slow adopter versus kind of other departments, which makes sense. It's higher risk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were saying before the call, perhaps with the background in audit and accounting, the first people to kind of ask, should we be doing this? And maybe that's a good thing for things that we're talking about around money and finances and payments. So it's not a bad thing to be necessarily, wanting to understand it before fully implementing or embracing it.
And I think we haven't seen that much of the really vicious side of AI. And I think that's going to become a bigger problem. So I'm sure you've heard of the situation where they like cloned the CEO. They got someone to dial into a Zoom call, completely cloned CAO, looked like him, voiced like him, told them to set up a massive payment. Like that type of thing is going to become like an increasing problem. And if you've got an AI agent talking to an AI agent, your business is at risk because you don't have that kind of like human check of that type of thing.
The only thing I would say is that I completely agree with you, and I actually think that there should be more checks that the humans should be doing. Right now, there are situations where that exact same thing has happened, and the humans were the ones who made those payments, right? And so maybe we need an element of, it looks like there's like maybe attack AI coming out, so maybe we need the defense AI to help us out as well, right? So I think, yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, and I'm on your side. But I think we might need AI to help us.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
more
yeah.
tools to help protect us from the tools.
I think you need both. It's like you need double
The
guardrails because it's becoming even riskier.
software stack's just going to grow more and more, and
If you guys.
I guess changing tack slightly. Thinking about, we have touched on a little bit like AI in the wider business as well. I think it's a reality that all teams are using or experimenting with AI. I think here at Cledara we have a feature that allows customers to see software usage, and I think in 23-24 Chat GPT was the software, the biggest shadow IT tool that we saw, like an explosion. So people are using it in their day to day. So I guess, are you encouraging it in areas of your business? Are you encouraging the teams to use these tools? Are you being more cautious about how they interact with these things? Or these tools?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, and to Bilal's point about junior people being able to step up quickly, I have definitely seen junior people are much more willing to try and experiment and unafraid of it. So that has been really interesting because, something that I think is like new, they've been doing for ages, So I think there is a real enthusiasm for junior people to kind of cut out work and do things efficiently and try tools. And I think it's important to give them the freedom to do that, whether that's budget, whether that's time. People will experiment if you let them. So enabling them to do that, but making sure that they also kind of understand what the risks are involved and how to do that.
Yeah. Yep, I was speaking with a customer the other day who's decided to create an AI budget specifically to allow each team to kind of use a certain amount of budget to have some freedom or creativity to experiment. So yeah, I guess back to you, Bill. Are you seeing that as well? Are other companies you work with encouraging of AI? Are they happy for people to be using it?
I think it's interesting that in certain areas, in certain roles, it almost seems like a default that they would be using it. Let's say, for example, developers and engineers, if they're not using it, I mean, I think they're in the wrong job. How are they going to keep up? And on top of that, I think it'd be really interesting to see how, I mean, the space that I'm in, most people are going to be using it to some degree, right? Everyone's using it, and if you're sat there like typing things out, and it takes you ages and ages, usually you can save most of your time by at least leveraging something, even the free version of ChatGPT. What I'd be interested to know, and I haven't been able to find it, is how who's paying for, or how many businesses, I guess, are paying for, let's say even like ChatGPT, right? Who's paying for it? Are people using it anyway, but they're using the free version, or are they paying for it themselves? I think that'll really show whether a business is serious about it, and it's whether they're serious about getting, I guess, the best tools, or are they cutting down costs, but then people are using it anyway. Um, and then it makes you wonder about, there's other things to consider around like data protection, for example, who's entering whose information. Um, are they using if their own personal accounts? So there's a whole bunch of, this is a big can of worms that people need to consider, right? I think that'd be interesting to see who's paying for it. It's probably going to show where the emphasis is.
Okay, if they're willing to kind of pay for the tools, then it's, companies obviously
Mhm.
encouraging it. And
Mhm.
wanted to there's a couple of questions, really great questions come in, so I do want to make sure we get to them. But I kind of wanted to ask you both, in terms of, and I think the audience are interested as well, in terms of like staying ahead, especially in finance. There's being self-educated. Is that both your experiences, you've just got an interest in staying ahead, or is there anything out there that people can be doing to kind of understand how to use these tools perhaps for their jobs better? I've seen some people offer courses on ChatGPT and how to write better prompts, right, to get what you want. Is that something you'd recommend doing, something you've just learned playing around with it? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
go for it.
Go for it, Laura.
I have mainly done it from playing around. Like I've definitely joined some communities and stuff where you get, so I'm part of like Ben's Bites, but part of different communities, and you begin to see different things being shared, and also being part of finance communities, because you can see what finance tools people are using and how people are talking about it. It is so fast moving that I don't think there is much point paying a lot of money to do a course, because honestly, it will be completely different in 3 months' time. We just did a big project about building listing availability, and honestly, the way that we do it now, even like 2 months later, is completely different. So it's so fast paced and so fast moving that I think it's much better to be talking to people and in communities and getting newsletters so that you can kind of see how things are evolving.
I think there are some things that yeah, I think you're right in terms of the courses are probably going to fall behind. I do think there are some skills that could be scalable, things like how to prompt or how to delve more into an answer or break it down. And I think there's so many free tools online that I think people should probably try and use those first. That's what I would say. Spoken like a true accountant. Let's do it for free first. But definitely on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of information, but also being able to go specifically into it. Let's say, I don't know, we're putting together a simple Excel spreadsheet. How do we get the right prompts to be able to answer? What are the things that are probably going to hold us back? What do we need to plan ahead of time? Those are the kind of things that I think are probably going to be scalable, especially because the AI tools are now starting to be integrated in things like Excel and Google Sheets, right? Again, like where I've been using them, there are still limits. So it helps to know what I'm trying to get to ask a really specific question. But I hope that people are able to pick up the skills. And some of it's going to be practice. And I think, Laura, we were talking earlier about this, right? About how there are some things you can learn, but there are some things which are just experience. And you do just have to pick up the tool and give it a go and try it out. And I think dedicating a bit of time towards learning a couple of things that should be scalable in terms of your own skill, I think they're going to help a lot.
I think it's definitely in kind of all teams, right? Something that's here to stay. So for your career, learning how to navigate these tools or having that on your CV, I can see as being a definite plus down the line. Like at least coming in to be able to say, yeah, I'm experienced, I know how to use this. I think that's going to be pretty key. We've had a couple of questions come in. Maybe we can jump on those. I think this one's probably for you, Bilal, about kind of AI in finance processes. I think Nicole's asking, do you have to have the perfect process in place, or are they substantially different? I think the question there is, yeah, like in order to implement something, does it have to be perfect?
It's a very good question. I don't think I've ever seen a perfect process. Mainly because we should also always be thinking, again, that's where hopefully the creative element comes in of thinking, this isn't working right now, or this isn't working as efficiently as I wanted to. Is there a better way to do it? Can we keep tweaking it? And I think that hopefully people are able to keep tweaking processes, and hopefully they're encouraged to do that as well, to be able to think slightly differently to what's already been done. So I'd say there's definitely no I wouldn't wait for the perfect process for sure.
Yeah, a webinar from last year from the archive, we spoke to someone in FinOps who said, if you've got a pain point, you just got to do the best that, start the process to make it better. Like, don't wait until this pain point gets so big. So yeah, I guess if you're experiencing any kind of process improvements and AI can step in, or you can use AI to even help you kind of figure out the best way to move forward. The idea is just to get going, right? Just to kind of start.
And I feel like you will be able to leapfrog a bit, even with the tools that exist now. So you hopefully should be able to, it's almost like you've got a bit of an advantage in that you're starting from scratch if it's not in the best position, because you can almost leapfrog to what's best in class now, which probably is very different from what it was 2 months ago.
Then we had someone else, Charlotte, submitted just, I think, more of a comment saying about paying for specific AI tools. As a small tech company, I think, Laura, you can probably identify, you were saying a bit earlier, as a kind of a smaller team, paying for specific AI tools is kind of going to be really beneficial. I guess, yeah, you would maybe agree with Charlotte's comment there. There's some tools that are really just worth paying for.
Yeah, definitely. And so many of them do free trials anyway, that normally you can get to a point where you can see that it is going to add value, and then you end up paying for the trial, paying on. I am terrible. I have far too many AI tools. But yeah, most of them have a free trial, so you can start and then see if they actually add the value.
Fantastic. And we have had one other question in about kind of which free tools would you kind of recommend trying? Any from both of you, any kind of top tool that you would recommend for Wallaf there, so he can get going with something?
Go for it, Laura.
I was going to say V0, I quite like as maybe one that, and that is basically, it kind of does like the UI, so you can make quite cool dash. It feels like you're a developer. That's a fun one.
Living your coding dream.
Yeah.
Like building things.
Yeah. If you like building things, that's a fun one, as is Manus actually as well.
Perfect. We can take a couple of these down and put them in the email that we send out afterwards. So, Bilal, from you, anything that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I think anything that I'd say in terms of free tools for sure, anything that's already integrated into the tools that you're already paying for, probably that maybe not leveraging things like already mentioned, like Copilot and Excel and Gemini as well. And all these are coming out as bolt-ons, so I guess I'd consider them free. But also maybe the bit that I'm lacking, I can't remember the name of it, but anything that sort of make things um more presentable, let's say like Google Slides or anything like that. Anything that can add it and be like, okay, well, this is probably we don't need 100 bullet points. Let's try and condense this and make it a bit better. So anything on that side, I think is super useful. I'll try and find some names. Um, but for sure, I think that's anything on that side is super useful for me for sure.
Fantastic. Well,
also, if you get a lot of when I was kind of running the finance function, I used to get a lot of like just quite like when is payroll type requests. And so if you have Fixer or Superhuman on your inbox and it drafts all of those type of responses for you, that type of thing can really make you quite efficient, I think. Yeah, depends what types of things you have coming into your inbox, but I definitely find those can be really helpful. And I think they both do free trials.
Oh, fantastic. And I know we're kind of slightly over time, but just a follow-up question kind of came in about can I provide, I think going back to the process from Nicole we were talking about before, can AI provide me with initial processes so you can prompt to ask for a process in flowcharts? I think Bilal, the answer would be a resounding yes, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would try. I'd be interested to see what the different tools, what their output is, and also be able to compare it and see what you can make then a bit more bespoke into your own business. And I do think there are tools out there that can create like flowcharts, for example, and just be able to put things out there. Here are the different bullet points. Here's the different steps that we have right now. Let's put these into a process. There's definitely tools out there that can do that. Making it more bespoke, I haven't found one that sort of considers all the elements that you might need, but definitely in terms of getting a skeleton together, yeah, there's definitely tools out there.
Right. Wow. Anyone in the audience, if you've got any final questions, feel free to post them now. And if not, you have success@cledara.com. You can forward them to us and we will get them over to Bilal and Laura. So I guess maybe we wrap it there. Let me just say a massive thank you to both of you today, to Bilal and Laura. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think it's been a really interesting conversation. I can see we had lots of people attending this one, and I think everyone's really appreciated hearing how you're approaching AI, kind of your thoughts around the future of AI. Sounds like it's going to be exciting. Sounds like there's going to be some things to watch out for, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Everyone, we'll see you next month in next month's edition, and we'll be sending out the recording with those links very shortly. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.